Hello, and welcome back for another adventure in the cookie jar. Today we're doing the 14th recipe from the Devil's Food Cake Murder, which is called Sally's Apricot Bread. It is not the longest recipe. However, you are going to need to preheat your oven to 350. You're going to want 3/4 cup softened butter, 1 package of softened cream cheese, 2 cups of white sugar, 2 beaten eggs, half a teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1.5 cups mashed apricots, 3 cups of flour, half a teaspoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of baking soda, half a teaspoon of salt, and 1 cup of chopped pecans. So you're basically going to mix the butter, cream cheese, and sugar, add the egg, add the vanilla. It does say if you're using fresh apricots, peel and slice them. If you're using jarred or canned apricots, strain them thoroughly, mash them in a food processor with a steel blade, or puree them in a blender, or squash them with a potato masher until they're pureed. Measure out 1.5 cups of mashed apricots and add them to your mixing bowl. Then you're going to add in the dry ingredients, and then you'll add the pans by hand. You'll coat the inside of 2 loaf pans with nonstick spray. Spread the batter into both equally and bake them for 350 for approximately an hour. Check your loaves at 50 minutes. If they're browning too fast, tent them with foil. It says you can also bake this in 6 smaller loaf pans for 45 minutes. Leave them in the pans for 30 minutes. Once the 30 minutes have passed, loosen the edges around the pans. This is a dense, moist bread. It should be stored in a cool, enclosed place. When my loaves are completely cool, I slip them in food-sized sealable plastic bags and keep them in the refrigerator. You can also wrap them in a clean kitchen towel and store them in a bread box if you still make bread boxes, that is. This bread freezes beautifully if you wrap it in plastic wrap or foil and slip it into a sealable freezer bag. This recipe makes 2 bread-sized loaves or 6 small loaves. And they have a note saying that if you want to make this apricot bread into apricot muffins, spoon the batter into greased cupcake muffin tins, filling them 2/3 full, and bake them at 375 for 25 minutes or until golden on top. If you'd like to make mini apricot muffins, fill your mini pan tins half full and bake them at 375 for 15 or 20. So you can do a lot with this bread recipe, but everything's laid out. Let's get started. This is everything we're going to be using today. Into the mixer, we're putting the butter, the cream cheese, and the sugar. Once you have all of those in, we're just gonna turn it on and let them blend for a couple of minutes. This, we're gonna add our eggs, the vanilla. Next, we have our apricots. So to our flour, we're going to add the baking powder, the baking soda, and the salt. It says just to give that a little bit of a mix. It says to gradually add the flour in. The rest we're going to do by hand. So I'm just going to give this a quick little stir around the top bit. We're going to add our pecans and stir those in. Now, we need to grease our pans. And I like to get as precise as I can with things. So I am going to put these on a scale and try to fill them about halfway. This is what we have going into the oven for an hour. And here is what we got from our 2 loaves. It has a good flavor in the pecans. It's got that toasty nut smell. The apricots get a little burst of juicy fruit. Overall, it's a nice little bread. We will be using 1.5 loaves next week to make the chocolate apricot bread pudding. If you are interested in seeing how that turns out, join us next week. Y'all have a good one. Bye, guys.